Hey guys, welcome back to episode 25. So this week we're going to speak all about nutrition myths. I have had some insane nutrition myths in my time, and I've also believed some insane nutrition myths in my time. So I'm going to speak to you about 9 different nutrition myths. I'm going to set the facts straight, and I'm going to hope that you go out, you spread the word, and you change your opinion on these crazy, ludicrous myths. So, nutrition myth number 1. This is a real popular one. That carbohydrates make you fat. That eating carbohydrates make you fat. That is categorically not true. You cannot get fat from eating carbohydrates. Now, as with lots of nutrition myths, there's always kind of like a shred or a grain of truth, and that's why it's stuck and it's hold on. So let me just explain 2 things. So firstly, the only way that us as human beings can gain weight is by being in a calorie surplus. Now, those surplus calories could come from carbohydrates, they could come from protein, they could come from fat, they could come from anywhere. There isn't something built in carbohydrates that mean that when you eat carbohydrates you gain weight. However, when you eat carbohydrates, for every 1 gram of carbohydrate that you eat, you do attract 2 to 3 grams of water. So if you went out on a Friday night and you had pizza, you had pasta, you had garlic bread, you had a real high carbohydrate dinner, and then the next day you stepped on the scales, you may have gained a few pounds, but it won't be body fat, it will be water. And as your body processes that carbohydrate, your weight will return to normal. So carbohydrates do not make you fat, but they do mean that you'll hold more water while your body is digesting them. Okay, but I always try and say to clients that I work with, we're not trying to manipulate our water weight. Like, we're trying to lose body fat. So if our scale weight goes up and down due to water, which it will, that's okay. What we're looking for when we're on a fat loss journey is like a downward trend over time. We're not worried about so much the daily fluctuations that most of the time are due to water. So that's number 1, okay? Categorically, carbohydrates do not make you fat. Number 2 is an interesting one. I hear this a lot from people where they say, oh, but I can't eat late because it will turn to fat. I can't eat after 6 because it will turn to fat. I mustn't eat after 8 because it turns to fat. That's a lie. At no time will your body turn food to fat based on the time that you eat it. Doesn't matter if you eat at 6, doesn't matter if you eat at 8, doesn't matter if you eat at 10, doesn't matter if you eat at midnight. Your body will not do that. That is not a process that happens within the body based on time of day of eating. Now, here's the things to consider around time of day of eating. How comfortable it is for you to actually digest that food. So if you eat at 10 o'clock at night and then you go to sleep and you can feel that food gurgling around in your body and it doesn't feel comfortable, then that's a reason maybe not to eat late. But it categorically will not turn to fat. Going back to number 1, the only way we as human beings on this planet can gain body fat is by being in a calorie surplus over time. So that time of eating does not come into it. Number 3 is a real bugbear of mine, and I think it's a real bugbear because it's something that I used to believe. Number 3 is you have to eat clean to lose weight. Now, what on earth do we even mean when we say clean? I hate that terminology, like clean. Now, I know what it means. You mean healthy food, right? You mean salads, you mean veg, clean foods. But that is such a ridiculous statement that we've been given from diet culture. Like, no food is clean, no food is dirty. There was an incredible study by a guy done in America, and I'm not suggesting anybody do this, but this is just to really emphasize my point, where he ate McDonald's every day straight for 30 days, and he still lost weight. The reason why he lost weight is because he was in a calorie deficit. So his body was using more energy from the calories that were coming in from McDonald's. So food choice does not come into whether you're going to lose weight or not. How I like to really coach this is there's fat loss and then there's health, right? So the reason why we wouldn't want to eat McDonald's and Mars bars and low nutrient foods constantly, even though we could lose weight like that, is because our health would be shocking. If we were to peel our skin off and look at the insides of our body, they wouldn't be in a great state if we ate low nutrient foods constantly. However, it is possible to lose weight eating low nutrient foods if our movement exceeds the calories that are being brought in from the food. And that is really, really key, especially if you're somebody that really feels guilty around eating foods, can be quote unquote doing so well, and then has a biscuit in the evening and feels like they've ruined everything. Just understanding that haven't ruined your day if you eat a biscuit at the end of it. It's not going to reverse the nutrients that you've eaten through the day. And if you are over a week in a deficit, then that biscuit hasn't knocked you out of one just because it's a biscuit. So I hope that's really, really clear, because it actually just keeps us stuck when we think that we have to lock in to eat in a certain way every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. And if we veer outside of that, suddenly we're going to gain weight. Or if we're on a fat loss journey, that suddenly our fat loss journey is going to come to a halt because we ate a Mars bar or because we ate a donut. Like, it doesn't work like that. Our bodies are so intelligent. They do not work like that, okay? So you do not need to eat quote unquote clean foods. It absolutely helps in terms of fullness, in terms of satiety, in terms of health, if we eat foods that are higher in nutrient, if we eat foods that are higher in protein, if we eat foods that are higher in fiber. These actually help fill our tummy so we feel full. They send a message to the brain saying, hey, I've had enough food. So absolutely, it helps to eat foods that are higher in nutrients. Number 4, and I spoke about this in last week's podcast about the myth that you have to track calories in order to lose weight. Now, again, that is categorically not true. You do not have to track your calories, but you do need to have calorie awareness. Now, calorie counting is one way of having calorie awareness, but there are multiple ways of having calorie awareness. And actually, calorie counting can be a great temporary way, but it's a really, really crap long-term way. Like I said, unless we want to be getting out our weighing scales at age 80, what we really want to do is take on board and learn about food, learn about nutrition, learn about portion sizes, learn about emotionally regulating without using food, so that we can actually lose weight and maintain it long term. So you don't have to track your calories. You absolutely do not, but you do need to be mindful of your calorie intake. Number 6 is a personal, again, another pet peeve that I really don't like. And this isn't something that I've ever tried. Fasting. The myth that you have to fast in order to be able to lose weight. And it is just that. It's a myth. If we think about it logically, right? What we need for fat loss is to create a calorie deficit. Now, when people fast, effectively what they're doing is saying, I'm just going to not eat until 12, which skips out breakfast, which means I've cut my calories down. Or they're going to say, I'm going to stop eating at 8 and I'm going to not eat anything in the evening, which means I've cut my calories down. So it's just another way of bringing about a calorie deficit. Now, personally, in my experience and in my coaching life, I've not seen this work well for many people. I know there can be many health benefits, but I actually think they're for a smaller minority of people than what we are led to believe. In my experience, when people fast, what that does is drive up hunger later in the day, especially if they're fasting in the morning. So they'll skip breakfast, which let's say maybe like 200-300 calories, but then instead they're eating biscuits, crisps, chocolate, cake in the evening, which equates to far more calories. So then they're not losing weight. Another thing for perimenopause and menopausal women, skipping breakfast is not wonderful. Energy levels are a challenge in perimenopause and menopause. To then start your day unfueled does not help with your energy levels. So you do not have to fast to lose body fat, but you do have to bring about a calorie deficit. And although it's not my personal favourite, what I also believe is actually everyone should do the thing that works for them. So if skipping a meal works for you, and when I say works, I mean the net benefit is positive, right? So not that you're skipping breakfast and you feel wonderful, but then you're binging in the evening and now the net benefit isn't positive, but the net benefit to you fasting actually is positive over a period of time, then you should absolutely do what works for you. Number 7, we have protein shakes are for bodybuilders. Now, this is a huge, huge myth. There's so many women that I work with whose protein levels are on the floor, but they'll be really wary about having a protein shake, or they'll think I can only have a protein shake if I worked out in a gym. Protein is for everybody. We need it from children. We need it as teenagers. We need it as adults. We need it as women. We need it as men. It is a fundamental macronutrient that keeps our bodies healthy. So if you are not eating enough, and again, we can talk about what enough actually looks like, but if you know your protein intake is low, then protein shakes are a really easy way to increase your protein. Your biggest challenge is going to probably be finding one that you like, because there's no point having one that has 20,000 health benefits, but you can't stand the taste of it, because it's not going to last. It needs to be something that you actually like, that you're actually going to use on a frequent enough basis, that it means your protein intake has gone up, that it means that's beneficial to your overall health. So find one that you actually like. Now, when we're talking about enough protein, a very, very low level, and we could go into this in more detail, but I'm going to keep it really, really surface level here. Enough would look like a portion at each meal, and we can use our hand as a guide, right? We can say, have I got 3 times a day an amount of protein that looks roughly like this, whether it's coming from meat, whether it's coming from fish, whether it's coming from plant protein, whether it's coming from a protein shake. Am I making sure that at least 3 times, most days, we're not trying to be perfect here, we're just trying to navigate a place that actually is going to work for us and we can sustain and keep up. Am I consistently, over time, having 3 portions of protein per day? If you are doing that, you are in a wonderful place. You do not need to worry anything outside of that. Now, number 8 is a really interesting one, and this has been passed down to us from years and years and years and years of ingrained diet culture. And that is the myth that eating fat causes you to get fat. And remember what I said earlier on, where I said there are shreds of kind of half truths in some of these myths, which is why they're stuck on. So eating fat does not cause you to get fat. However, it has the highest calories per gram. So fat has 9 calories per gram, as opposed to protein and carbohydrates that have 4 calories per gram. So imagine this, you've got 1 gram of fat, 1 gram of protein, 1 gram of carbohydrates. If you eat 1 gram of each of those, the protein and the carbohydrates are only going to give your body 4 calories of energy, whereas the fat is going to give your body 9 calories of energy. So although it doesn't make you fat, as we have been led to believe, it's more than double the other 2 macronutrients. And that is why diets like Slimming World sin fat, because it's actually fairly, very surface level, but fairly easy to get people to lose weight. If you say, hey, I want you to cut down the macronutrient that has the most calories per gram, automatically that's obviously going to take people's calorie intake down. However, it's not the thing that causes us to get fat. If we go back to myth number 1, the only way as human beings we can gain body fat is by being in a calorie surplus over time. In that, our body is taking on, we are eating, drinking more calories than what our body is actually using. Fat in isolation doesn't just turn to fat as soon as we eat it. And actually, fat for us as human beings, and particularly women, is super important in terms of our hormone structure, in terms of our hair, our skin, our nails, our brains, our heart, our overall health. So it is fundamentally important that we do eat fat. We want a variation of fat. So we want fat from fish, we want fat from nuts, we want fat from olive oils, we want fat from various places. We do not want to be fearful of eating fat. I've worked with some women previously where their fat intake is on the floor. They're struggling with their nails, they're struggling with their hair, they're struggling with their mood swings, they're struggling with their periods. It's really important and fundamentally vital that we do have a fat intake on a regular basis, and we're not fearful. But the next one I'm going to speak about is sugar is toxic and addictive. Now, we've had this narrative peddled to us and pushed to us that sugar is so bad and so on and so forth. My opinion, my belief, my firm belief, my experience coaching people, it is not the sugar, it is the relationship that we have with sugar. I have never, although I've met many, many people that tell me I'm addicted to sugar, I'm addicted to donuts, I'm addicted to chocolate, I'm addicted, If I start them, I can't stop. I've never met one person who is literally getting a bag of sugar and inhaling it from it. And if we were really addicted to sugar, that is what we'd be doing. We'd be eating sugar by the spoonfuls from the sugar bag. But nobody is doing that, because it's actually not about hard sugar. It's about our relationship with these foods and the story that we tell ourselves. Now, there have been so many trials, so many studies done that sugar is not addictive. Sugar is not an addictive substance. I can absolutely empathise and hear you that it may feel like that, but that is down to the relationship that we have with foods that actually also have carbohydrates and fat in them as well. It's not just about the sugar. And that's a really important myth for you to really understand, that there's no evidence suggesting that sugar is addictive. Okay, there's really none. And it's helpful for us to know that. So then we can come down to, okay, so if I feel addicted to chocolate, if I feel addicted to donuts, it's not that there's something in this that's causing me to be addictive. It's that I don't have a good relationship with these foods. And that is where I can put my energy and I can spend my time and I can try and heal that, rather than telling myself a lie, which actually is a lie, that it's just that the sugar's addictive and it's kind of beyond my control. The last one that I want to share with you, the biggest myth that I see that keeps not only women but everybody stuck, is that you have to be perfect to see results. There really is no perfect way of eating. Perfect in nutrition does not exist. The middle ground, the grey space, that is where we thrive. That is where we can seek enjoyment for food, where we don't live in fear. What's worse than sugar? What's worse than the sugar in your donut, the sugar in your salad dressing, is actually being fearful of these things. So I hope that this has cleared up some of the crazy myths that are out there. If you know any that I've not heard of, I'd love to hear them, and I'll catch up with you next week.